What's up? It's Pete Kennedy here of Subway Sports Talk. Just want to touch base really quick before we get into the episode because this was originally going to be a 2-segment episode with Cody O'Connor talking hoop. We talk about the Knicks. We talk about the NBA at large as we get to the post All-Star break portion of the season. And we're going to talk to Andrew Kalanya about the Mets, about the Yankees, do a good vibe check as spring training kicks off. But you know what? I decided to make it 2 episodes. So if you hear me say in this episode that we're going to talk to Andrew Kalanya in a minute, we're going to talk to him tomorrow because it's going to be 2 separate episodes. They got both a little bit too long, and there's enough meat on the bones for both of them. So we got NBA and Knicks talk coming up right now with Cody O'Connor, and we got Andrew Kalanya, Mets and Yankees vibe check coming up later in the week. So stay tuned, subscribe to Subway Sports Talk on your podcast app, Apple, Spotify, whatever it may be, or on YouTube so you can watch along as well. So appreciate y'all for listening. As always, we had a great run through football season. We had a great run through the first half of basketball, and we got a whole lot of Knicks, whole lot of basketball talk coming up, and of course, baseball around the corner. So Cody O'Connor right now, Andrew Kalanya talking Mets and Yankees on the vibe check in the next day or two. And we'll talk to you again next week. Actually, we'll talk to you again on the next episode. Just subscribe to Subway Sports Talk. You'll know when it comes out. Cheers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Joining me today, it's been a little break on the podcast front, but joining me here, Cody O'Connor, to talk some hoops and maybe sprinkle in a little Mets talk at the end just for funsies. How you doing, Cody?
Doing great, Pete, and hopefully sounding even better. Got the new mic, as promised by Pete. He told you guys there was going to be a prize for whoever won the picks. Speaking of prizes, this should be no surprise to anyone that I won because, look, face it, I'm really, really smart. That's why I crushed it at about 3 games over 500 and borderline didn't even break even if you count the VIG. But you know, Pete, that's neither here nor there, right? I got the mic. Thank you to you.
Shout out.
My gracious host. And, you know, after that, after those picks, the rankings, Pete, people are going to start to ask, where does Cody O'Connor rank among the all-time greats? You're going to hear his name thrown out there, and the likes of, you know, Michael Jordan, Pete Rose, Phil Mickelson, Charles Barkley, Calvin Ridley, Jamison Williams, you know, just some of the all-time gamblers.
There you go. I really did not know where you were going there for a second. I was like, yeah, Michael Jordan, you know, well-known GOAT, right? Okay. Phil Mickelson, sure, right? Maybe of our lifetime. Charles, okay. Then I started to pick it up. As soon as you said Calvin Ridley, I stopped in my tracks. I was like, hold on. That's hysterical. If you want to go even super deep cut, any English Premier League and or Italian or Serie A fans, Sandro Tonali, former AC Milan, then Newcastle United, big-time signing in the offseason, plays like 4 games and instantly gets banned for a year for gambling.
Oof.
Oh, God, it hurts my feelings, but that's okay. No one cares. No one even here knows that I'm a sneaky Newcastle United fan, so I don't even talk about that out loud. It's pretty great, though. I've been enjoying it. Anyways, Cody O'Connor, you deserved it, my brother. Congratulations on winning the tournament. I will say this, that I was 1 leg away, and I shouldn't even say 1 leg. I was 1 yard away twice in the Super Bowl for a plus 350 or plus 325 and a plus 1200 hit on those bets. So I was close to just steamrolling the competition with those. 1 more yard from Ayuk I needed, and then the half yard for Brock Purdy is just a killer. I was one of those guys who had over 12.5 and then kneeled down at the end of regulation, just stuck a freaking knife in my chest. But that's okay. It was fun. I'm glad you won. If Pat won, he might have gotten a slightly different gift. If Mark won, I would have said, you don't even know there is a prize. You haven't been on the podcast in weeks, so you get nothing. No, I would have gotten something, of course, too. But yeah, sound great. I look forward to it. And good job recapping that because I forgot to do that. We haven't been on the podcast since the Super Bowl, so it's good to talk. It's good to say that you won that contest of what did we say? It was 24 weeks in a row of picks. That's what
Here
it was.
we go,
doing
like numbers again, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was a lot of picks, a lot of weeks, and You added the extra pick in there. I think that was generous of you to add a fourth pick to only lose by one loss. And like you said, even a half a yard. And I could have sworn you hit that bet when I was looking through. And then I saw Brock Purdy ended up at 12. I thought he already hit for you. That was brutal.
What a shame. What a shame. But here we are ready to talk about basketball. I don't know if you felt it throughout All-Star weekend where you're like, all right, it was a good couple days off. Now let's get back to the hoops action. I know you got hockey in your corner. We got spring training popping up. We're going to talk some spring training with Andrew Kalania later on in the show. Also, I'm going to get your Mets thoughts at the end of our segment here, Cody. But I don't know if you're feeling it. I'm feeling ready back for the basketball on Thursday night. All-Star break, didn't watch a second of it. I got to be quite honest. Unlike me, usually I throw something on, but I had a wedding Sunday. I was hurting from said wedding, so I didn't get to tune into much else. And now I'm ready for Knicks on Thursday night amongst all the other NBA action. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk Knicks. I got a few hot topics to talk to you about, Cody. And then later on in the show, we'll talk some baseball with Andrew Kalania. So Cody, first and foremost, let's start off with the Knicks. Let's just get that out of the way, if you will, because I think we're in this interesting point of the conversation with the Knicks where it's just all about health, right? It's all about this team needs to get back healthy, and we need to see what Bojan and Alec Burks look like alongside the rest of the guys once this full unit is ready. But with that being said, Cody, I want to just kind of ask your opinion and see what you feel like, because with the Embiid news, with the surging Cleveland Cavaliers, with the always looming Miami Heat and the front runners Boston Celtics and Milwaukee Bucks, it's still a little bit interesting to see where the Knicks fit in all of this. My question to you, how much do you feel like you need to see of this new Knicks roster with Bojan and Burks and OG and Randall and Mitch possibly and Hartenstein and the whole nine? How much more do you need to see in order to feel some semblance of competence and competitiveness from this bunch?
Yeah, and as they sit right now at 7-1 to win the East, probably relatively appropriate. Cleveland plus 900 right behind them as the only one I could probably argue could leapfrog them, just because right now they are so banged up. If I'm a Knicks fan, I'm looking at it from the hopeful perspective that they're getting this injury bug out of the way now, that this is the time to just kind of rid of the injury bug, get healthy when it comes time to it. But you're going to need about a month, I would say, of these guys playing together, figuring out what these rotations look like, how they're going to play off of one another, because they are a collection of a group that not superstarless. I think Jalen Brunson is their clear-cut superstar type player, and their closer, their finisher, their shot clock scorer, if you will, as I heard Ryan Russillo call it. I thought that was a good term, but a guy as the clock's winding down, 5-6 seconds left, other things didn't work out. Can you get a bucket for us? And that's Brunson, and I think he's clearly deserved that. But what does the next, echelon look like with OG and with Julius, and now you said Bogdanovich and Alec Burks back in the mix, which, as we know, when the playoffs come around, rotations kind of tighten up and they get shortened. Who's going to be on the short end of that stick? Is it more of a matchup based? Is it, hey, we have enough 9-10 guys that even though we're playing every other night, we're going to be healthy because we can play 15 minutes for some of these guys. So I need to just see them healthy and together, and to probably get about a month of that chemistry worked up and built up, and I would probably feel a lot more comfortable then. Pat put it pretty well on one of his shows recently that now's not the time to take the Knicks at 7-1, because you can expect probably a little bit more losing before the winning comes back, as they're still fighting to get healthy. So if you could get them closer to 8.5, maybe 9, that's a great number. I don't think it's going to go much lower than 7. But yeah, to answer that question, I think they just need about a month or so before the playoffs together, and I'll feel much better about where they're at.
And with that idea of waiting for the odds to possibly move down a little bit, kind of like ski down to ski back up type of thing here, if you don't expect them to win right away as they get healthier, I thought about a similar thing here. Cody, was my initial mindset wrong in any way when I looked at the odds just last night and saw what you just explained? The Knicks had the third best odds in the Eastern Conference. They're plus 700, like you just said. And my initial reaction was it was too high. It was too high. Why are they still that high right now? Do you think there's anything to do with it being the Knicks, with it being a New York market? We always talk about like the Dallas Cowboys are always a highly bet team. That's why their odds are always not the best. Do you think the Knicks have that? Or do you think that like I'm just actually not feeling the confidence because they lost 4 going into the All-Star break.
So looking at it, the thing that leaps out to me is the Bucks being at just 3-1. I think that's kind of ridiculous. If you watch the Bucks this year, there's clearly something wrong with that team right now. I think the thought is they have Giannis, they have Dame, they could kind of flip it on its head, and at the time coming, they could flip the switch, as you say. But I think the Knicks being 7-1 might be a little more indicative of how they feel about Boston, who's just plus 115, and them saying that they are the clear-cut favorite. The odds makers still think Milwaukee, like we said. I don't really believe in them. I think the Knicks, them, and Cleveland, even if you want a bunch of group up, would probably be somewhat similar. So I think 7-1 probably, in my eyes, has more to do with Boston being a heavy favorite. The books still seeing Milwaukee as that, even though, again, I don't agree with it. And the Knicks kind of falling into that, not no man's land, but the tier right below it. So I don't think 7-1 is crazy.
So you think it's properly rated?
I think it's about right. I can't see it. If it was 5-1, I don't think enough people are betting on it. I think 7-1's a number where they get people to bite.
And I think part of my thing too is we look at the championship odds, like the actual NBA champion odds, and then the conference odds next to each other. And you see Boston, obviously, you see Denver, you see the Clippers, Bucks, Suns, and then it's the Knicks and Timberwolves tied, right? Which to me, just maybe it's just because of that last week and how poorly it went. It still felt like a little too much, even though I was on this very podcast about a month ago saying this team could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And now I'm sitting here saying, hey, just chill out, everybody. All right, chill out. Let's get healthy first, but maybe the odds are just, thinking ahead that this team's going to get right.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is, because we know what the injury timelines are too. It's not like these injuries are, we don't know. It's not unforeseen. It's not Lonzo Ball of the last couple years. We know these guys are coming back in the next couple weeks, and they got at least a glimpse of what it can look like healthy. So that has to play a factor.
Yeah, and this podcast should be coming out on Wednesday, which means that the Knicks' first game is tomorrow on Thursday, or if you listen to this on Thursday, Dante DiVincenzo should be back, Bojan should be back, Hartenstein should all be back Thursday, with Randall making progress, with Mitch apparently still in play to make a return at some point this season, and all that stuff is incredible. So one more question here on the Knicks, Cody, something I want to get to in regards to who remains here on this roster, right? Obviously, we know Quickly and RJ got sent out a while ago. Feels like a long time ago already. Quentin Grimes just got sent out before the trade deadline, and we haven't really done a full go on the Bojan and Alec Burks of it all. So now with this lineup, with Brunson and Randall, assuming everyone's healthy when we're all back here, right? Brunson and Randall, Dante DiVincenzo, Mitch Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, Alec Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic, Josh Hart, Miles McBride, throw him in there too. Is there any one player outside of the Brunson and Randall of it all who does stand out to you? And I'll throw Precious Achua in the mix too, because he's been playing pretty well. Any one player there stand out to you that you're going to kind of have a little bit of a keener eye on moving forward to see if they can actually take one of those super role player type of roles?
I think we kind of know what we're going to get with OG. I think you've seen a lot of what OG is.
Look at that.
Yeah, but so that's not my answer, because we know he's not only a plus defender, he is an elite level defender who can switch. He's so versatile. So I think for me, Hartenstein is a name I want to see if he can continue on this path, because he's been phenomenal, and I do think he will. I think it's DiVincenzo, because without these guys, DiVincenzo's the guy that's getting all the shots. He's getting not even the open looks, but he's just taking all of these different shots. He's shooting with such confidence. Can he be that 40 to 42% three-point shooter, a legitimate threat on the outside to create some of that space that Randall and Brunson need to operate on the inside? So for me, for my money, if Devo can shoot that way and at least be that similar level threat, that's going to open up so much for them offensively.
My guy is going to be Bojan. It's Bojan Bogdanovic. I think it's the classic case of got traded to the Knicks, played with an undermanned team, and the shots just weren't falling, right? I saw a lot of people online saying, who is this guy? This guy can shoot. Like, he ain't shooting nothing right now, right? A lot of people a little bit nervous, little buyer's remorse perhaps, start talking about, oh, you got guys from the Pistons and you think that's going to go well. They sucked all year. And I saw a lot of that negativity about Bojan But I did a different project here where I kind of deep dove into what Bojan has brought into the table in his career. And this guy's a 39% career 3-point percent shooter. And in 43 playoff games, he's a 38% 3-point shooter. Do you know how many percentage points higher 38% is from the best 3-point shooter for the Knicks in the playoffs last year? Just take a guess.
8.
Very close. 6.5. It was 6.5 based off exactly where Bojan is. RJ Barrett had the best 3-point percentage for the Knicks in the playoffs last year at 32%. 32%, right? So if Bojan just sticks to what his back of his baseball card says, right, to take that old analogy there, to back of the baseball card, 38%, 39% from three, he is by far one of the best shooters this team has. And if Dante keeps shooting 41%, that's amazing, right? But Bojan's a guy to me who you called a shot. What'd you call it? A shot clock guy?
Yeah, shot clock guy.
Yeah, I think Bojan could be a little bit of a shot clock guy himself, right? Because he has that length. He can get his shot off over some tough defenses. He can kind of get a decent look without having to do too much dribbling and too much this, too much that. He can make his own shot. He could post up a little bit. I think Bojan, if he finds a fit in this rotation, whether it be 24 minutes or 34 minutes, I think he is the missing link. Because you look at OG, you look at Dante, their career numbers show that they're going to shoot a decent percent. Bojan's does the same. The three of them being those shooters makes a huge difference. I liken it to the Heat from last year because I think we can agree this Knicks team is going to be more similar to the Heat of last year than they were or than they would be to the Celtics of this year, or the Bucks of this year, or the Celtics or Bucks of years past. And a lot of people looked at Jimmy Butler and the Heat last year and just said, yeah, the Heat made it to the finals off Jimmy Butler and Heat culture. That's not really the case, actually, Cody. If you look at it, they had 6 different shooters over 36% from three last year. Gabe Vincent, 38%. Duncan Robinson, 44%. Caleb Martin, 42%. Kevin Love, 37.5%. Kyle Lowry, 37.5%. And Jimmy Butler, 36.5%. Max Strus was 7th on this list at 32%. That was the best number for the Knicks, right? So if the Knicks are similar to the Heat of last year, Brunson being the de facto Jimmy Butler on the offensive end, with Randall doing what he does, this starts to make sense to me. And this is where that confidence comes back into play, and that plus 700, third best odds in the East, starts to actually kind of come to fruition, but you got to see them get healthy. So I can't wait to see Bojan start hitting some shots and start finding his rhythm here in New York. He'll start doing it soon, as long as he's healthy. All right, moving on to some NBA-wide stuff, Cody. I want to throw some things at you. First and foremost, since we already touched on it, let's stay in the Eastern Conference. I want to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm not sure if you saw JJ Redick recently. I think it was actually today or yesterday, where he kind of went off on Doc Rivers and basically called him out hardcore for this guy. Doc Rivers always making excuses. For once, you're going to have to take some blame. Now you're trying to take credit for James Harden working out in the Los Angeles Clippers organization. And all you're doing is not putting out good performances on your own team right now. What did you take away from that? Like JJ Redick going at Doc like that? How poor it's been so far from a record standpoint for the Bucks with Doc Rivers so far. You mentioned some of your nerves already, but I want you to dive a little bit deeper on it.
Well, for anybody who doesn't remember, Doc coached JJ for many years with the Clippers, who were every year a finals contender, a championship level team. They honestly have one of the better roster constructions that I can remember in the last 10 to 15 years. And they obviously never made it past the second round. And so the thing with Doc is that's kind of been his MO ever since the 2008 championship with Boston. I mean, he's had multiple collapses and multiple just spots where they were favored and should have done more, and they didn't get it done for whatever reason. It's obviously not all Doc's fault, but it sure as hell isn't blameless either. And he throws a lot of different things out there, a lot of different excuses, if you will. And JJ, I like that he called him out on it because, Adrian Hauser lost a job for Doc to come in. He says it, I had nothing to do with that. That wasn't me. But you're seeing the exact same problems with Milwaukee. Granted, it's been only a short amount of time, so I'm not here to say that they can't change it or Doc is definitely not the guy. But I don't know. Were you excited to see that the Bucks were getting Doc Rivers? And did you think that was going to make some grand difference because I sure as hell didn't. I mean, I don't think anyone did. So I like that JJ said it. And the Bucks, they have to shore up defensively. And I don't get it because to me, Pete, they have the guys. Obviously, Dame is a less than defender. I mean, he's one of the worst defenders in basketball, to be quite honest. And you went from Drew to that. But the rim protection you have, the length that you can throw at guys, I mean, you can throw Giannis out on a guard if you really needed to, if a guy's really getting to your defense like that. So, and it's not like you're taking away rim protection because you have Brook Lopez, who's one of the better rim protectors in the league. So they have to figure out the fix. They have to figure it out soon, and it's on Doc. And to me, he's got to be running out of chances, right?
Yeah, he has to, right? And I almost feel like Bill Simmons in this regard. I'd rather him just be on the Bill Simmons podcast at this point, right? Because he was a pretty good guest on Bill Simmons, and hearing him in the chair of like ESPN's booth or on the podcast with Bill and talking about James Harden and what went right and what went wrong and talking about some of his teams of the past and the teams of the current day. I liked it, right? I thought he had insight. I thought he had some good ways of looking at different teams around the league. And when you hear it from a guy like him, maybe you think a little bit different. Like he was early on saying the Clippers were doing the right stuff, and then they start going off. I remember right when that trade happened, Doc said to Bill on the podcast, like, yeah, no, I think this is going to work. And Bill was like flabbergasted because he was obviously very out on that trade from the beginning. And now he's kind of come around on it. And hearing it in that context, it's like, oh, here's a guy who's not coaching right now, speaking honestly in a place where he can clearly be petty and not speak honestly and just say it's not going to work because that guy didn't work for him. And I was like, wow, Doc making some good points. And now he goes into coach Milwaukee, and all he's done kind of so far is make excuses. There are some people out there who believe their defense is doing better, just not getting the results just yet. They're going back to some of the Budenholzer type of stuff, which worked for a long time, got them to a championship and won it. So we'll see what happens over time. But to think there's confidence in a guy who hasn't been able to get out of the second round that frequently, a guy who hasn't won a title in, 15 years at this point. It's been a while. So I'm with you. The confidence doesn't really go much higher from Milwaukee. In fact, as a Knicks fan, you sit here and say that team might be more gettable than you would think. And on top of that, did you see Giannis talk about how he doesn't watch any basketball at all?
I missed that one. I usually catch most, but I missed that.
Giannis was at the podium like, yeah, I don't watch basketball. And he's like, it's kind of fun. It makes it more challenging when I go up to a new team because I don't really even know what I'm going to get. And then we just do it. And I'm like, yeah, like I see you and I hear you, but also like maybe some film work could be good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. So maybe the confidence in the Bucks is rightfully a little bit lower than it could be. All right, moving on to the Western Conference. I have a question for you here, Cody. It's a little bit more pronounced on ESPN Bet than it is on DraftKings, but for now I'll just use DraftKings because I have it up at the moment. The Western Conference Championship odds. The number one odds are the LA Clippers at plus 250. The Denver Nuggets are second, plus 255. Pretty much negligible, right? Mm-hmm. On ESPN Bet, I'm pretty sure it was 250 and plus 300 for the Western Conference. However, if you go to the championship odds, the Nuggets have better odds than the Clippers. Now, that's a little confusing to me, Cody. Does that make any sense to you? And is there any sort of merit or reason that makes sense or that should be?
I'm only going to play devil's advocate because the true answer to this is no, that doesn't make any sense to me. But the advocate could be that they believe Denver maybe matches up better with a Boston or whoever comes out. That's the only reason that you can make it that way, because other than that, it doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, like you said, this is 250 to 255. That's 475 to 500, right? If I'm looking at, yeah. So it's very small. It's very minimal, and it can't be any more than that. But it's just something to note. It's odd. It is strange.
Yeah, and in ESPN Bet, it's a 40-point difference. It's plus 215 Western Conference for the Clippers, plus 245 for the Nuggets. And then for the championship, it's plus 450 for the Nuggets, plus 500 for the Clippers. Just a weird thing that I kind of noticed there, and that makes me want to dive into the Clippers again. Because I think with the Nuggets, we can sit here confidently and say, we know when the playoffs show up, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray is one of the best duos in the NBA, and they can beat anybody. We don't have to really break it down much further than that. As we get closer, we can talk about some of the others, some of the role players, and et cetera. But for the Clippers, right now, things are still looking really good. You got Kawhi playing at a near MVP level, Paul George and James Harden cooking. When is the point for you where you sit here and say, yeah, nah, I really got to start putting some eggs in the Clippers basket? I don't know how many eggs you have in that basket already, but if so, or if not, when do you start really saying, okay, we got to take this team ultra serious?
No, they have to be taken seriously at this point. I'm probably not going to personally do it, and most of that, and I know it's like almost a scapegoat, but they're maybe the worst health bet of the playoffs teams. Them, Phoenix is right up there, and that's probably my reason, because at plus 250, you're also asking them, this is to win the West, but they have to be healthy enough to win 3 playoff rounds, minimum 12 games, more likely to be between 22 and 25 if they were able to do it. And that's a lot of wear and tear. Now, the one thing I will say, having, been able to watch a little bit more clips recently, Kawhi Leonard looks healthy. Like, speaking of health, he looks a lot like old Kawhi. Not, old Kawhi, like the old Kawhi. He's got just that burst, that bounce to his step. He feels like he can get past you again on offense, and he can, if he needs to, still lock up defensively, not to the same level, but because of that, and because of the fact that he is the clear alpha and he looks the way he does, James Harden and Paul George get to be the second, sometimes third option on any given night. And then you bring in Russell Westbrook, and his ability to keep that same level of energy and bring it to the bench and take that to the second unit is so big. It's so vital for them and for their success. So because they have all these pieces around, they have to be taken completely seriously. But I personally won't have any futures on them. I just won't.
And what about this future, though? Because you just mentioned Kawhi Leonard. He's currently plus 7,000 for MVP odds. He's behind Jokic at minus 135, SGA plus 210, Giannis plus 850, Doncic plus 950, Tatum 2,500, and then Brunson and Kawhi Leonard plus 7,000. Is there a world that if Kawhi surges through the rest of this season, the Clippers end up as a top 2 seed, which right now they're a half game out of the 2? Is that something that is possible for you? Is that something that's a little bit more enticing that might be worth playing?
Well, plus 7,000. I mean, you want to throw $5 on it, knock yourself out, win 350. But the reason I don't think Kawhi, and the reason I think the odds are this, is because of the supporting cast, because he has so much around him. Joker still kind of not does it himself, but you don't know who the next guy is going to be, and it's not like, oh, it could be a handful. It's like, no, it literally might have to be Aaron Gordon tonight, because Jamal Murray might be shooting poorly, and Michael Porter Jr. just really hasn't been that great this year, very inconsistent. So because of his supporting cast, like, he has to be the 1 seed in my eyes, like, no question, has to be the 1 seed. And if he takes that, his odds change a little bit, but I think the odds are plus 7,000 right now for a reason. I'd rather take Jalen Brunson and take my chances on the Knicks surging up through the East and him having a ridiculous second half, because he's had the first half already to kind of, at least numbers wise. So I don't see it. It's possible, but plus 7,000.
Yeah, I think it's properly rated. Maybe a little bit too high right now. Like, do I think maybe he can get into the top 3 conversation? Absolutely. Like, if Luka Doncic and the Mavericks are in the play-in tournament, how many votes is he getting? Right? Like, is he really going to be getting many votes? His numbers are obviously stupid. We know this. But it comes down to the point where you're looking at Jokic, SGA, Giannis, Tatum, Luka, Kawhi. Maybe Kawhi sneaks into that top 3. And if he continues to surge, doesn't miss many more games, he can be looked at. And one thing I kind of use as a guideline for MVP is the win shares stat on Basketball Reference. Currently, in total win shares, he's ranked 10th, which is not obviously, top 3. It's number 10. But on a win shares per 48, he's a little closer to that top 5 margin. And again, we'll see how the rest of this season goes. Maybe some of those advanced stats can help him, because his counting stats just aren't going to look like Jokic. They're not going to look like Giannis or SGA, because they're constantly putting up double doubles and triple doubles, and Luka's putting up triple doubles. Kawhi's not that guy, but if the defense, I can see the narrative is my point, Cody. I can see the narrative build. Clippers roll into the 1 seed. All of a sudden, Kawhi's looked at as the defensive stalwart he was for his entire career. His points per game is up at 27 or something like that. I can see it. I can see it. I'm probably going to throw $5 on it just for funsies, but you're right. It's not the bet you're going to drop your mortgage on by any means. Jokic still seems like that guy.
But yeah, but you don't have to because it's plus 7,000. So that's the point.
Yeah. What'd you say? $5 was to win 350. So
I
10,
hope that's right.
10 to win $700. Yeah, that's insane. $10 you can win 700 on Kawhi. It's not a crazy idea. All right, last thing here on basketball, Cody. Just about 2 weeks ago, you and I did a NBA contenders draft, and I was decently happy with how my list came out, but I was a little bit jealous of yours. I just want to go through it real quick and see if you have any regrets or any other things that you maybe wish you looked at a little closer now as we really hit this post All-Star break push. So you had at the first pick, so you had 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You had Denver, Milwaukee, OKC, New York, Miami. I had at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, Boston, Clippers, Suns, Timberwolves, and Lakers. Anything stand out to you in that order or in that vicinity of contendership, Cody?
Yeah, all of a sudden, I think I like your list a little bit more than I did then, or just in general. The one thing I kind of thought about afterwards and recently was how big or how high I've been on Boston, and then taking the Nuggets with the first pick. Like, was that a coward's move? Because as I keep thinking about it, I genuinely think Boston is the team with the highest ceiling. That if everything is right health wise, that they are the best team across the Eastern and Western Conference. I really do believe that. So that's probably the only thing that maybe I would switch, would be stick with my original guns with Boston over Denver. But the fact of the matter is, when you're talking about the Joker, you're talking about the best problem solver in the league. He's the guy that's going to get your team the most consistent, great looks, and you could just bank on that. So that's why I went with him. That's why I went with Denver. I can't hate on myself for that, but I do think Boston has the highest ceiling.
So the one other one that we already touched on a little bit was Milwaukee. So
Yes.
you picked them number 3. You took Denver. I took Boston. You took Milwaukee. Do any of the other teams at this point in time kind of stick their head a little bit higher than the Milwaukee Bucks, whether it be the Clippers, your Thunder, the Knicks, Suns, or Timberwolves, or whoever it may be?
Probably currently the Clippers, and still I'm waiting. Maybe there's a buyout guy for Oklahoma City to get a big man, because it's really the only thing that's truly holding me back from wanting to take them to win the title, to be able to come out of the West. Like, I just see the potential to get matched up with the Joker, to get matched up in 7 games with Minnesota. And I think they're 2-1 against them, but 7 games against that size, I think you're going to need a bigger guy to bang. Look, Sam Presti and Oklahoma City, you're much smarter than I am. So I will trust them like I trust no other team of mine's regime. But it's hard to say I don't have that worry when it comes to them. The one team that wasn't really listed, we haven't talked about much, that I think could potentially come out. I don't know if we're on the same page here. It's Dallas for me. Is that where you're at?
That's not where I was going.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, well, Dallas made 2 moves. They traded for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford at the break, at the deadline. And Gafford is a big rim running, lob threat type of guy to run the screen and roll with Luka Doncic, which he runs it
That's
as well
who the
as
Thunder
anybody
needed.
can. That's exactly who the Thunder needed. And I mean, honestly, you could have thrown so many names at me and I would have been okay with it. But Gafford would have been great. PJ Washington helped shore him up. And all of a sudden, the Mavs are on a little run. And I said it, when we did this before, the fact of the matter is Luka Doncic is, if it's Joker at 1, to me, Luka's 2 as far as a problem solver, bucket getter, set your guys up, make the right play. I mean, even when he put up 73 a couple weeks ago now, I watched that game, and towards the end, he was not just searching to get to 73. He wasn't just jacking up shots. He just kept making the right play. And he's just so hard to stop. He's so smart. He seems to have figured out all of the angles and how to get his guys involved and when to do it. And that's just a guy with now a new supporting cast and a number 2 in Kyrie, who's been awfully quiet, and in a good way. I mean, he's been awfully quiet as far as the media is concerned. I could see Dallas being the type of team to kind of shock you, if you will. And at plus 3,000, worth maybe throwing the 5 to 10 on.
And you know what? Luka Doncic is in an interesting spot here in his career, Cody, because he had this huge expectation upon entering the league, in which I look at it like he smashed through those expectations. I mean, by year two, he was 29, 9, and 9. Like, people take him for granted, honestly. And when he was younger, and he's still pretty young, right? He's only 24 years old right now. People forget about that as well. He's almost like the new Tatum, where he's still in his low 20s. And people likened him to LeBron James, right? Because of the size, because of the passing, because of the oversized point guard stuff that he does. And I think people got off of that because of him coming in overweight. That's something LeBron would never do. Him kind of not being ultra serious, ultra locked in all the time. That's something LeBron didn't really do. But if you really think about the career arc, and Luka Doncic already making it to a conference finals, already being top 5 in MVP multiple times in his career, probably going to be back there again, perhaps. Another all-star under the ledger, currently averaging 34, 9, and 9.5, which is stupid, right? On the best effective field goal percentage he had in his career so far to this point. Are we almost not caring enough about what Luka does on a night in, night out basis? Like, is he actually more like LeBron than we are willing to admit, because we haven't brought it up in 4 years?
I used to say this about James Harden, and I know you're a James Harden fan from years past as well. But I would always say, if you think that this guy is less than what you believe, or he's not as good as you think, wait until he plays your team 1, or go bet against him 2. And then you watch what he does to your team and how hard they are to stop. And Luka is at least, I don't want to discredit James, because what he did for a couple year stretch was incredible. I think Luka's right around that level, and that is so infuriating. I watched them play Oklahoma City a couple weeks ago, and it was just, they were unstoppable. He was unstoppable, and that Oklahoma City doesn't really look like that very often defensively. That's Luka for you. So he's done it in the playoffs. We know he can. You can't count him out.
And out of reference, just again, to go back to LeBron real quick, LeBron made his finals in which year, Cody? Do you remember?
I think it was his third year, is 2007. Fourth?
Was it 2007 or was it 2008, 2009?
It wasn't 07 against the Spurs? Or was that?
I thought it was 08, 09, because it was his second to last year in Cleveland, correct? I'm double checking it as we go through this anyway.
I think he made one. I think you might be right. It was against the Spurs. They got swept.
It was definitely against the Spurs. My basketball reference page is loading right now. No, it was 08, 09.
Okay.
It was 08, 09, which was his 6th season, Cody. And now Luka Doncic currently in his 6th season. So back to that again. If Luka makes a run, like you said is possible, and Luka ends up in a finals this year, he is currently on the exact trajectory of one LeBron James, with all the stats, with all the accolades. He doesn't have an MVP yet, but he's damn close. And all of a sudden, we went from looking at Luka as the pudgy guy who doesn't care that much, he's just too good for most of the league, to, oh yeah, no, we got to take this guy serious again. And I think that is very, very interesting. Though the team I was going to bring up does not have to do with Luka or LeBron James, but how about, Cody, the Golden State Warriors winning 8 out of 10 on their way into the All-Star break, kind of looking like that old Warriors team. Clay moves to the bench and drops 30 plus and hits a bunch of threes, and maybe they just unlocked something, Cody. Now we're looking at the Western Conference and saying, holy hell, they have about 7 teams, maybe 8 teams, who you would not be shocked if they're in the Western Conference Finals, where I think in the Eastern Conference, there's about 4.5 teams that you would not be shocked if they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Do the Warriors have an inkling of a chance? Should they be looked at a little bit more serious now?
I know this sounds like I'm taking the easy way out, but they're another. How do you count them out? How do you count Steph Curry out? How do you count out a team that is still a core of guys who have won 4 championships over the last decade? So no, I can't count them out. I can't sit here and say that if the Thunder's first round matchup is Golden State, that I'm going to be fist pumping and happy about that. You know,
You're going to be pissed.
I'm going to be a little pissed off. And this is why I said a couple weeks ago that the Thunder ceiling may still be a championship, but I'll deem success winning a first round, because look at the teams and guys that we're listing as potential first round matchups to round out that top 8 when it gets there. I mean, New Orleans, are they going to be the odd ones looking out? Is it going to be Sacramento, like the Lakers? And I mean, so, you know, I wouldn't count the Warriors out. I don't think I'll bet on them, but will I be shocked? No. And I'll probably kick myself when they are, you know, inevitably in the conference finals.
Yeah, you look at the Pacers and the Magic, and you're like, all right, those are nice Eastern Conference teams. They're good. They're going to be frisky in the playoffs. They're not going to be easy outs, but they're still a year or two away. You look at that West and you see Phoenix and New Orleans and Dallas and the Lakers and the Warriors, and you say, well, they're not a year away. They could be here right now. And wow, that's the 6 through 10 seeds. Like that's insane. That's insane. All those teams would be insanely tough outs for every team in the Western Conference. So we shall see. Cody, we have a great second half of basketball ahead of us. But before I let you go, I got to ask you this, because we're going to have Andrew Kalanya on to talk a little baseball right now. And I just got to get your vibes. I got to do a vibe check with you on the New York Mets. So give me the quick 2-minute vibe check with you and the New York Mets right now.
First year since 2016, the year after they went to the World Series, that I have little to no real expectation of what they can be. I'm not saying that there's no chance that they can make the playoffs, but they really just don't seem like they shored enough up on the pitching staff. Again, talking right now. Now, if they went out and grabbed a Blake Snell or a Jordan Montgomery, I might look a little bit differently at that, but they haven't done that. They don't seem like they're going to. So the pitching staff feels a little bit short. Kodai Senga, I think, can be an ace, but he's also a Japanese pitcher who could get hurt. And I hate to put that out there, but it's very possible. He was throwing every 6 days last year. The lineup I still think is very formidable. Starling Marte seems to be healthy. That is going to be a huge, almost addition, like, because we forgot just how valuable he was. And the biggest thing, the overarching thing, the question you're going to keep hearing looming, can you just freaking sign Pete Alonso, for crying out loud? I don't understand how in a sport with no salary cap, that this guy, who is not only met but farly exceeded every potential expectation, he's embodied what it is to be a Met. He wants to be there. He works his ass off. He gets better every year. He finds a way to improve on the things he hasn't been great at, typically fielding. And he, on a down year, hits 45 freaking home runs and 120 RBIs. Those guys don't grow on trees. Please sign him. I did hear a little conversation of extending Francisco Alvarez, at least if that's in the works. I've been clamoring for both of those things to happen since the end of last year. I hope they both do. Not a huge expectation, but I think they could be an 85 to 88 win teams and potentially sneak the wild card.
There we go. I love it. You want to give me half of that amount of time on the Devils?
Devils goaltending has been an atrocity, and that has held them back. And I have been screaming and hollering about them getting a new goalkeeper. They do have a guy playing, Nico Dawes, who's been very good as of late, and they won the Stadium Series matchup against Philly, which was huge. They're a few games out of the potential wild card spot. They're a few points away, but they're finally healthy. Jack Hughes is back. Nico Heischer's been back for a little bit, and this team that has a really good, really young core and has these guys locked up. I just hope that the goaltending and defense can kind of cement itself a little bit more, and then they could be more formidable. But until then, I'm very wary on their potential to even make the playoffs, let alone win anything substantial.
What can't this guy do? At the drop of a hat, the drop of a puck, he's got takes slinging off the chest, off the dome. I love it, Cody. Number one Subway Sports Talk football picker. We got hoops talk. We got some Mets vibe checks. We got some Devils vibe checks. Cody, as always, appreciate you greatly.
Appreciate you. Thanks, buddy.